Welcome to Literary Archaeology, where we are digging our way through the Grimm Brothers fairy tales. There's so much. There's a wealth of literature in Western society's history, and it's not censored, but it's buried because there's so much truth in there that the powers that be want to distance us from. So we are discovering that as we go. And obviously there's Hans Christian Andersen, who is, he was published in 1835 and he was influenced by the Grimm Brothers. So many stories that he wrote that everybody knows, like The Ugly Duckling and, oh my gosh, The Emperor's New Clothes. That's a good one for this day and age, isn't it? So many morals and truths that we need to be reminded of. And that's why they wrote the fairy tales in the first place, to drive those morals and ethics home so that we wouldn't be living the way we're living today. So there is some solace in knowing that we're not crazy. You're not crazy going around like, I feel like an alien here. No, we are an alien here. This isn't the way everything's supposed to be. The Grimm brothers tried, but I don't want to say they failed, but it kind of looks that way. But we can revive it best we can. So today, the fairy tale is The Three Brothers. Now, if this is your first time here, I don't read them ahead of time. I experience them with you guys. So we'll see what The Three Brothers has to reveal to us. There was once a man who had 3 sons, and he owned nothing but the house in which he lived. Now each of his sons hoped very much to inherit the house after his death. Since the father cared for them equally, he didn't want to hurt their feelings, nor did he want to sell the house because it had belonged to generations of his ancestors. Right there, we don't even have that anymore. We have the next, generations going, I want a new house that no one's ever lived in before. No one values history, legacy, family like that. This is our family home. This is our family farm. And we should, because those are the ties that bind. We should not want to just go and pave our own path, but that has been ingrained in us because they want us separate from our families. They want us being selfish and only thinking about what we want, what we're going to go do, when we should be thinking, who are we? We are our history, not just our future. Otherwise, he would have divided the money from a sale and shared it among his sons. Finally, he had an idea and said to his sons, Go out into the world and see what you can make of yourselves. Learn a skill, and when you return, whichever one of you puts on the best performance of his talents shall get the house. The sons were satisfied with this proposal. The oldest decided he wanted to become a blacksmith, the second a barber, and the third a fencing master. Then they agreed on a time when they would all return home, and finally they set upon their way. It so happened that each of them found a good master, and each learned something decent and useful. Thinking about college these days, learning something decent and useful. I learned underwater basket weaving. I learned lesbian interpretive dance. It might as well be those things. The blacksmith had to shoe the king's horses and thought, now you'll certainly get the house. The barber shaved only distinguished gentlemen and believed that the house was already his. The fencing master received many cuts, but gritted his teeth and didn't let himself become discouraged, for he thought to himself, if you're afraid of a cut, you'll never get the house. When the appointed time arrived, they went back home, but they didn't know how to show off their talents in the best way. So they sat down together and discussed the matter. And while they were sitting there, a hare came running across the field in their direction. "Oh," said the barber, "that's just what I needed." Okay. He took a bowl and soap and worked up a lather until the hare was close by. Then he lathered it on the run and shaved a little beard for the hare also on the run. In the process, he neither cut the hare nor hurt it in any way. "I like that," said the father. "Unless your brothers do something extraordinary, the house is yours." Before long, a man came riding by in a carriage at full speed. "Now you'll see what I can do, father," said the blacksmith, who rushed after the carriage, ripped the four shoes from the horse, which continued to gallop, and put on four new ones, also at full speed. I'm picturing that. I have a history, working with horses and stuff, and it's pretty funny. Of the fantastical things that we read in these fairy tales, that one's the one that's impressing me. Oh, goodness, sorry, I laughed at my own joke. "You're a remarkable fellow," said the father. "You do your things just as well as your brother. Now I don't know who should get the house." Then the third son said, "Father, let me show you what I can do." And since it had begun to rain, he took his sword, swung it over his head, and made crosscuts so that not a drop of rain fell on him. When it began to rain harder, and then finally so hard it was pouring cats and dogs, he swung the sword faster and faster and remained dry, as if he were sitting safely under a cover. When the father saw that, he was astonished and said, "That's truly the best performance. The house is yours." The other two brothers accepted the decision, as they had promised to do, and since they cared for each other so much, all three of them stayed in the house together and practiced their crafts. Indeed, they had learned their skills so well and were so talented that they earned a great deal of money. They lived happily together in this way until their old age, and when one of them fell sick and died, the other two grieved so much that they too soon, that they too fell sick and died. Since they had all been so skillful and had cared so much for each other, they were all buried in the same grave. Family sticks together. I think the father knew it's not going to matter. When time goes on and they become men, right? And they learn their craft, they learn what it is to go out and become skilled at something and then come back home again. You do know when you go away a little bit and come back, you say to yourself, "Gosh, I value this home so much more." And I think the father knew that would happen. I think the father knew he was never going to have to choose. And some of you may say, "Well, where were their wives?" Well, not all men had the blessing of procreating, but the brotherhood was strong. And I think the father knew that was going to happen. And we just don't have that today. We don't have brotherhood. And I think it shows. I think society would be a lot better off if men had that bond between them, the bond of brotherhood that isn't just, "Oh, we cheer for the same football team." You know? What a beautiful story. Powers that be don't want brotherhood. They want to be the brotherhood. They are big brother. They can't have brotherhood united against the big brother. Okay. Whew, that was a good one. On to the next one. We have, let me see. I can't see my computer with these glasses. We have more than enough time for the next one. Now, the next one is The Devil and His Grandmother. These fairy tales refer to God and the devil frequently. because they're real, not because they were trying to teach they were real. It was understood. And it was understood which God we're talking about, right? This is not a Hindu God. This is not Buddha or whatever it is they do, right? This is the God. God the Father, whose son is Jesus Christ, who died on the cross. You know the one. Okay, the devil and his grandmother. There once was a great war, and the king, who had many soldiers, paid his men so poorly that they couldn't live off their wages. 3 of his soldiers got together, therefore, and planned to desert. 2 began talking, and one said to the other, "If we're caught, they'll hang us on the gallows. So what do you think we should do?" "There's a large wheat field over there," the other said. "If we hide in it, nobody will ever find us. The army won't enter the field." So they crept into the wheat field and sat there for 2 nights and 2 days and almost died from hunger because they couldn't go out into the open. Finally, they said, "What's the sense of deserting if we have to die of a miserable death?" That's a good point. Just then, a fiery dragon came flying above the wheat field and asked, "What are you 3 doing there in the wheat field?" "We are 3 soldiers," they said, "and we've deserted the army because we couldn't live off of our pay anymore. Now we'll die of hunger because the army is all around us and we can't find a way to escape." "Well, if you'll serve me for 7 years," said the dragon, "I'll take you right through the middle of the army in a way that nobody will catch you." We have a saying around here and on my other channel, Far From Eden: easy money is the devil's money. Now, he's not giving them money, but he is giving them safe passage. And you will see numbers pop up in these fairy tales like 7, 12, 3, all very biblical numbers. It's not an accident. 7 years. So he says, "No one will catch you." "We don't have a choice," they replied, "so we'll accept your offer." They do have a choice. They can go back to the army. They could. Or they could face their fate. People always say they don't have a choice. Like, "Oh, I was starving, so I had to steal a loaf of bread." You actually didn't have to steal a loaf of bread. You had to steal a loaf of bread to not starve. So it was either steal or starve. People don't want to answer that question. They want to say, "No, I had to sin. I had no choice." It's harsh, but the world is harsh. Then the dragon grabbed them with his claws, took them under his wings, and carried them through the sky to safety. Afterward, he set them down on the ground again. The dragon, however, was none other than the devil. And he gave them a little whip, and all they had to do was to crack it, and they'd have as much money as they wanted. Easy money is the devil's money, and he always comes back to get what's his. And he's a trickster. His greatest trick is to make you think he doesn't exist or that he's not evil. With this whip, you'll be able to live like great lords, keep horses, and drive around in carriages. But at the end of 7 years, you will be mine. How many people have sold their souls in this world of ours, do you think? A lot. A lot. Upon saying this, he took out a book, and they all had to sign their names to the agreement. "But," he added, "before you're finally mine, I'll give you a riddle, and if you solve it, you'll be free, and I'll have no power over you." Then the dragon flew away, and the 3 soldiers began their journey with their little whip. They always had plenty of money, ordered the finest clothes to be made for them, and traveled around the world. Wherever they were, they lived joyous and splendid lives. They drove around with horses and a carriage and ate and drank well. The time then went by quickly, and as the 7 years were drawing to an end, two of them became extremely anxious. But the third took it lightly and said, "Brothers, don't be afraid. Perhaps we can solve the riddle." When they were all together, an old woman, I'm afraid of old women in these stories because they're usually witches. You know what, you guys? It makes me, when I am like in the real world, and I look around and I see an older single woman, sometimes I'm like, do y'all do the same thing? I know a lot of you do it with the long fingernails, like witchy fingers. It makes you see the world differently when you read these fairy tales, which just goes to show why they were written in the first place, so we would see that world that way. I say it all the time. We think in stories. That's why they show us television and movies, and there are always like stories and songs, even commercials. That's programming. What television program are you going to watch? What program on Netflix? It's right in front of our eyes. Okay, so he says, perhaps we can solve the riddle. Oh boy, where was I? Oh goodness. You guys, I do this. There it is. Okay. When they were all together, an old woman. Oh, the old woman. That's what happened. That freaked me out. Okay. The old woman came along and asked them why they were so sad. "Oh, what's it to you? You can't help us." "Who knows?" she answered. "Just tell me your troubles." So they told her that they had been the devil's servants for almost 7 years, and he had supplied them with money as though it were water. However, they had signed their lives over to him and would become his if they couldn't solve a riddle after the 7 years were up. "If you want some help," the old woman said, "then one of you must go into the forest where he'll find a cliff that's caved in and looks like a little house." "That won't save us," thought the two sad ones, and they remained outside the forest while the cheerful one set out on his way and found everything just as the old woman had said. Inside he found another woman. Inside he found an ancient woman sitting there. She was the devil's grandmother, and asked him where he had come from and what he wanted. He told her everything that had happened, and since she found him very appealing, she took pity on him and lifted a large stone. "You're to sit quietly down there. When the dragon comes, I'll ask him about the riddle." At midnight, the dragon came flying home and wanted his dinner. The grandmother set the table and brought food and drink. This made him happy, and they ate and drank together. During their conversation, she asked him how his day had been and how many souls he had captured. "I've still got 3 soldiers lined up. They'll soon be mine," he said. "Oh, 3 soldiers," she said. "They're tough. They might still get away from you." "They're mine for sure," responded the devil scornfully. "I'm going to ask them a riddle they'll never be able to solve." "What kind of riddle?" she asked. "Let me tell you. There's a dead monkey living in the great North Sea. That will be their roast." "What?" "Let me tell you. There's a dead monkey lying in the great North Sea. That will be their roast. A whale's rib will be their silver spoon, and an old horse's hoof will be their wine glass." When the devil had gone to bed, the old grandmother lifted up the stone and let the soldier out. "Did you pay close attention to everything?" "Yes," he said, and had to leave by a different way so that the devil wouldn't notice him. So he went quickly through a window and rushed back to his companions. Once there, he told them what he had heard, and now they could solve what no living soul had ever solved. I don't even know what he said. A monkey and a what? Okay. Indeed, they were all so cheerful. They were also cheerful and in such good spirits that they took the whip and snapped it so that they had plenty of money. When the 7 years were completely up, the devil came with the book, showed them their signatures, and said, "Now, I'm going to take you with me to hell, where you'll be given a meal. However, if you can guess what kind of a roast you're going to have, you'll be free and may keep the little whip." Okay, that's really not a riddle. It's just I don't know what that is, but okay. Okay. Then the first soldier began to talk. "In the great North Sea, there's a dead monkey. That will probably be the roast." The devil was annoyed and went, "Hmm, and asked the second soldier, "What will be your spoon?" "The rib of a whale will be our silver spoon." The devil made a face, muttered, again, and asked the third soldier, "Do you know what your wine glass will be?" "An old horse's hoof will be our wine glass." At that, the devil flew away and abandoned them. He no longer had power over them, but the 3 soldiers kept the little whip. Indeed, they whipped up as much money as they wanted whenever they wanted money and lived happily until the end of their days. All right. So that was a close call, right? You might think, well, they got away with it. Yeah, they did. So what's the story about? Well, I can't tell you for sure because I can't ask the Grimm brothers, and I'd really like to know what you guys have to say. However, the 3 soldiers weren't the only characters in the story, were they? You had the devil, some random old woman, and then an ancient woman who was his grandmother. The devil is evil, and he is a trickster, and not very many can outsmart him or even understand that they're being tricked. Who was a bigger trickster? 2 women. And you might say, yeah, but they helped those 3 soldiers. Indeed, they did. What did they do? They betrayed. The grandmother betrayed her son. I'm happy about it. You're happy about it because good won out. But who can out-trick the greatest trickster ever? His grandmother. And the other woman was like, yeah, go over there. And I don't think it was because she was a good person. I think it's to show you that, well, I mean, women are good at it. And there didn't seem to be any loyalty. So you can take that for what it's worth. Maybe she did want to help them. Maybe she did have some good in her and she wanted to help them. But it shows you our skill, doesn't it? It does. If you grew up reading these fairy tales, you would understand that women are very clever in what some might say manipulative ways, and it can be used for good. This grandmother of the devil actually used it for good. Whether it was her intention to do something good or not, it can be used for good. And that's the way it should be used. To do something good. Not to hurt people, but to figure out a way to help people. That's why women are spies. That's why women make good spies. Because we are good at that. But it can be very dangerous if it's aimed the wrong way. So it's both a compliment and not so much to women. It's almost like a superpower that we have, and we have to be careful with it. Better to help save souls than to help the devil, win in some other ways. She could have just said, hey, guess what? A soldier came to me and they're trying to figure it out, but she didn't. So it's complicated in a way, but The truth at the bottom of the complicated stuff is actually very simple. Very simple. You wouldn't know it today because they try to put layers and layers of confusing things. You know, men can be women and women can be men, gender spectrum and all the rest of it. It's like the truth is actually very simple. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. I did. Sunday is such a great day because we get to do this. We're getting nearer to the end, probably about, I don't know, 60 to 80 pages left. Goes by quickly. I'm going to be sad when it's over, but we have Hans Christian Andersen. We have other novels like 1984. We have books in the Bible like Ruth, Song of Solomon. So much to get into. So much. If only I had more energy, I'd be doing all of it right now. But please subscribe to the channel. I should have asked you that earlier in the show. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Please like the video. There's a way to hype videos on YouTube. If I could encourage you to do that, if you don't know how to do it, just take Google and ask your phone, Google, you know, or you don't have to do talk to text, and ask it, how do I hype a YouTube video? I'm not allowed to do it. I'm not allowed to hype my own videos. But if you guys could do it, that would be amazing. Maybe we'll get this channel bigger, monetized. So YouTube's like, yeah, let's send it out there. And let's have a lot more people rediscover who we are. It's just better for all of us. And then we can have pockets of Christendom. We have to keep it alive. And it's stories like this, all kinds of works of literature that do that. We're in a battle between good and evil, and this is the way we fight. Truth is our weapon. So with that, please always protect your peace. Feed your souls. I love you guys, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.